Knowing and understanding these rights is important. President Abraham Lincoln once said, "Study the Constitution. Let every American, every lover of liberty, every well-wisher to his future generations swear by the blood of the Revolution never to violate in the least the laws of this country, and never tolerate their violation by others." Unfortunately, these rights are violated every day, and ignorance of the people is the chief motivation for these violations. No one is going to remind us of our rights, so we must know them, understand them, assert them, and strive to protect them. I am now going to focus on our First and Fourth Amendment rights. In subsequent videos to follow, additional rights will be covered, but for now, we will focus on some examples of how our First and Fourth Amendment rights are violated or hindered. The First Amendment to the Constitution reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." Let's focus on the right of the people to peacefully assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. Unfortunately, this right is violated quite frequently by agent provocateurs. Agent provocateurs are defined as agents employed to associate with suspected persons and, by pretending sympathy with their aims, to incite them to some incriminating action. Throughout history, government agencies have been known to do this to disrupt peaceful protests. In 2004, at the Republican National Convention, New York City police officers were accused of acting as agent provocateurs to disrupt protests. The officers were seen undercover acting as protesters and inciting acts that would lead to a justification for riot police to quell the peaceful protests. In 2008, at the Democratic National Convention, undercover Denver detectives staged a struggle with a police commander during protests. This led to the riot police using pepper spray against their own detectives and arresting them in front of protesters so their cover would not be blown. The rights of the people are not only violated in the United States. In Montebello, Canada, at a peaceful demonstration protesting the venture toward a North American Union, 3 undercover Quebec provincial police officers were discovered as agent provocateurs by Dave Coles, who happens to be the president of the Communications, Energy, and Paper Workers Union. This event was caught on camera, as the following video clip will show.
To local news now. Protesters at this week's summit in Montebello are accusing police of trying to incite violence. Video on YouTube shows union officials confronting 3 men they say were police officers dressed up as demonstrators. One of the men is holding a rock. Now, Steve Fisher reports the union is demanding to know if the Prime Minister's office was involved in trying to discredit the demonstrators.
Put the rock down, man! Put the rock down!
This is videotape posted on YouTube of a confrontation between 2 groups of protesters at Montebello, Quebec, Monday. Or is this man actually a protester?
Leave these guys alone! That's our life!
The man and his 2 friends certainly dress the part, bandanas covering their faces. One even has a rock in his hand.
They want us to be aggressive with them.
As the confrontation continues, the 3 back towards the police line and then are brought through, where they're arrested and taken away in handcuffs.
Who was in charge?
The head of the Communications, Energy, and Paper Workers Union says the 3 were in fact undercover police, and they have the pictures, they say, to prove it. These are the boots worn by police. Here are the boots of 2 of the men they arrested.
The Communications, Energy, and Paper Workers Union of Canada believes that the security force at Montebello were ordered to infiltrate our peaceful assembly and to provoke incidents.
What are the odds that these guys were, in fact, legitimate protesters?
Pretty slim, really slim.
Doug Kirkland is a retired Ottawa police officer. He used to be in charge of security at demonstrations in Ottawa.
That's a very slippery slope, and I think you're stretching the bounds of proper police intelligence.
The union says it may be a sign of just how far the government is prepared to go to stop debate over the main topic at the summit, the Security and Prosperity Partnership.
The Government of Canada wants to diffuse our questions. And what other way to escape the spotlight or the light of day by trying to make it look like this is some sort of radical group, trying to create a confrontation, instead of dealing with the hard questions that civil society, our union, asks.
No one from Sûreté de Québec would speak with us on camera. All a spokesperson would say is that they don't use agents provocateurs during protests. When asked who the three men were who were arrested, the response was simply no comment. Steve Fisher, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Quebec Provincial Police eventually admitted that the three men wearing masks and carrying rocks were in fact undercover police. Dave Coles, the union president who discovered the undercover police, did exactly the right thing. He saw the men carrying rocks and took action by denouncing them and refusing to be provoked into illegal actions by the undercover police officers. Quick thinking and quick action like this is necessary in the assertion of our rights. Now let's take a look at the Fourth Amendment. It reads, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized." Let's first focus on how that right is violated every time we approach a random DUI checkpoint. When someone is pulled over for suspicion of DUI, it is because the officer has probable cause that you are under the influence based on the characteristics of your driving. This is completely within the officer's right to pull you over to conduct further investigation. But when a roadblock is set up in order to stop everyone driving on that road without the very least probable cause, it violates our Fourth Amendment rights. In the case of Michigan versus Stint, the Michigan Supreme Court deemed DUI checkpoints as unconstitutional. The United States Supreme Court eventually ruled that they were in fact constitutional with a 6-3 vote, and the late Chief Justice Rehnquist admitted that DUI checkpoints do, in fact, constitute a seizure within the language of the Fourth Amendment, and also said a minor invasion and minimal intrusion on individual liberties is necessary to prevent drunk driving. The dissenting justices pointed out that the Constitution does not make exceptions. The sole question before us is whether or not the police had probable cause to stop each individual driver approaching the roadblock. The U.S. Supreme Court decision was sent back to the Michigan Supreme Court, and they responded by saying, "If you won't protect our citizens, we will," and ruled again in favor of the defendant.